The Free Poles protest was a huge demonstration against Donald Tusk's unlawful actions. Protesters gathered in front of the Constitutional Court as the December 13 coalition plans to take control of the court through resolutions. Politicians from the power camp are announcing the dismissal of 3 judges elected by the Polish Sejm in December 2015. This is completely unlawful, and those who protest against it and say that it would be a violation of the Constitution and the laws that are enforced in Poland are right. These are simply actions that are beyond my imagination. The status of 2 judges, Krystyna Pawłowicz and Stanisław Piotrowicz, is also being questioned. According to the ruling coalition, at the time of their election, they were older than the laws allow. The rule which states what conditions must be met by a person who is to become a judge of the Supreme Court, because these are the conditions that align with the requirements a candidate must meet to become a judge of the Constitutional Court, there is no age limit there. Former Constitutional Court President Professor Andrzej Zoll is proposing even more far-reaching steps. The lawyer is calling for the removal of all judges holding seats in the Constitutional Court. All of these people do not meet the criteria to be judges of the tribunal due to the fact that they have chosen to rule with people who have been incorrectly elected. They issue rulings that are blatantly unconstitutional. If the former president of the tribunal and the judges say that the tribunal does not exist, then I ask you, who pays you a completely decent amount of retirement benefits every month? This non-existent tribunal? Polish people are reacting to announcements of more unlawful actions. A poll conducted by SW Research for Rzeczpospolita asked whether Donald Tusk's government should hold a dialogue with Polish President Andrzej Duda on the changes he wants to make to the judiciary. More than 67% of Poles think yes. Only 16% of those asked hold the opposite view. Less than 17% of those surveyed have no opinion on the matter. This means that Poles demand that any changes be made in accordance with the law, and not as was the case, for example, with the public media. The state that Donald Tusk and Mr. Bodnar have led to is appalling, and Poles see it. They demand that Donald Tusk stick to his mandate and the Constitution. The resolution nullifying the election of some judges was supposed to appear last week. However, work on it has been postponed to an unspecified date in the future. As the old rule goes, elections are won in the center. According to Professor Maliszewski, it is precisely because of the unfavorable polls and the upcoming elections that the new government has decided to slightly slow down. And this is probably dictated by these very electoral considerations. The fact that it is precisely these moderate voters who may negatively view these changes that are taking place, which is what I was talking about, namely the removal of various kinds of safeguards. Donald Tusk's team, step by step, is illegally taking over more state institutions in Poland. The Council of Ministers, fearing a veto by Polish President Andrzej Duda, is trying to govern the country through resolutions. However, as the presidential palace points out, the government has not even tried to pass any constitutional law to the head of state. Out of 31 countries, the members of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, only 8 fulfill their statutory obligations to fund the army. This means that only 1/4 of NATO countries allocate at least 2% of GDP to the army, among them Poland. That is why Donald Trump exclaimed,
"Big countries stood up and said, well, sir, if we don't pay and we're attacked by Russia, will you protect us?" I said, "You didn't pay? You're delinquent?" He said, "Yes, let's say that happened. No, I would not protect you. In fact, I would encourage them to do whatever the hell they want. You got to pay."
Nothing is free. That's the brutal truth. Trump pointed out the obvious. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk took offense to this. The Polish Prime Minister criticized the withholding of the next tranche of financial aid to Ukraine from the U.S. in this way. Dear Republican Senators of America, Ronald Reagan, who helped millions of us to win back our freedom and independence, must be turning in his grave today. Shame on you. It didn't take long for American politicians to react. According to them, Tusk is meddling in U.S. domestic politics, and in a way that is quite incomprehensible.
Drogi premierze,
Dear Prime Minister, can we start sending you the 300,000 migrants who illegally enter America every month? It would really help us deal with the invasion of our country and go a long way to helping pass the aid bill you want us to approve. Donald Tusk is undermining Polish-American cooperation and mutual relations, experts assess. This is not the tone and scope of the topic. The Polish Prime Minister commented on something that is such a part of the internal political game in the United States, and politicians, especially senators, don't like it very much. They don't like to be lectured by anyone, and they don't like it when someone interferes in their politics. The Polish-US alliance must be strong, regardless of who is currently in power in Poland and the US. I have always acted this way and will continue to act in this spirit, respecting all our partners in the U.S. Insulting half of the U.S. political scene serves neither our economic interests nor Poland's security. By the way, thanks to the wise and far-sighted policies of the last 8 years, we spent 4% of GDP on defense. Thanks to this, Poland is and will be safe. Polish President Andrzej Duda responded to Donald Tusk, although it is clear that Tusk's comments towards the U.S. are not mere deficiencies in education, but the implementation of a long-distance and complicated policy, according to a script written in Germany. Today, Berlin, with the hands of Tusk, with the hands of Poland, is doing what they themselves would like to do. But at this point, they simply have a sucker who is doing all the dirty work for them, and is doing it in the interest of Germany, which wants to push the United States out of Europe and wants to dominate here through a federalized Europe. And supplied with only German-made weapons. Konrad Warzocha, TV Republika. On Saturday, Spanish police scuffled with a group of farmers and lorry drivers in Madrid as they tried to access a main road in a bid to block it, one of several protests sweeping the EU against the bloc's environmental rules and what workers see as excessive taxes and red tape. A group representing drivers, Plataforma Nacional, and a newly created farmers group, Plataforma 6F, decided on Saturday to come together, calling for a national strike to jointly demand action from Spanish and European leaders. They claim rules to protect the environment make them less competitive compared to other regions. Members of both groups waving Spanish flags and shouting "Viva España" gathered in a parking lot near the Atlético de Madrid stadium and voted in favor of joining forces. They will protest together from now on. It's the first time the primary sector and truck drivers protest together. Never in history have the two sectors come together to the streets. And it's the first time we do this public commitment that will take place. The primary sector, agriculture and livestock farming, are in charge of keeping our fridges full of necessary and good products, and the transport sector is in charge of taking these products to the people's homes. Since Tuesday, Spanish farmers have joined peers from Germany, France, Italy, Portugal, Belgium, and Poland in daily protests that include blocking several highways and ports. Shortly after the vote, hundreds of protesters walked around the Madrid stadium before trying to access a main street via a dirt road. Using force, dozens of police officers managed to stop them from doing so. Both groups vowed to keep protesting in Madrid and across the country until their demands are met. On Sunday morning, Finns started voting in the presidential runoff, in which center-right Alexander Stubb of the National Coalition Party is the frontrunner, according to opinion polls. Stubb cast his vote in Espoo, just outside Helsinki, with his wife Suzanne Ines Stubb. Stubb, a former prime minister, won the first round of the election on January 28th, with 27.2% of the ballots, ahead of Liberal Green Party member Pekka Haavisto with 25.8% of the ballots. He has also beaten Haavisto in surveys, most recently by 6 to 8 percentage points. Both candidates are pro-European and strong supporters of Ukraine, having taken a tough stance towards Russia in their campaigns.
Well, the campaign has been extremely lively, and the second round have been meaning that people really gather around the candidate and come to the meetings.
Mr. Haavisto, what do you expect from tonight's results?
Well, it will be an interesting night, and a lot depends how is the voting activity today and who are those who have activated themselves to vote. So we hope the best performance of this voting day, and of course encourage each and everyone to vote and use their power to choose the president for Finland for the next 6 years.
Yeah, no, I feel quite good. I mean, quite relaxed. It's one of those things when you campaign for 6 months, pretty much every day. You do everything that you possibly can, and you wouldn't really change anything. So it feels quite good. I mean, I've been in this position a few times before in elections. I think this is my 8th election. And election day is always, you feel a little bit zen, you know, you sort of, you wouldn't do anything differently, and then you just wait for the actual result. And I'm sure I'll get a few butterflies coming in about, I'd say, 7:55 in the evening tonight before we get the pre-vote at 8 o'clock. But feeling good, yeah.
The new president will have a central role in defining Finland's NATO policies, while leading on overall foreign and security policy in close cooperation with the government and acting as a commander-in-chief of the armed forces.